started this evening. This is the planning board meeting for Thursday, February 4th. I'm going to do a roll call. Rebecca Hanson, John Kelly, Brian Dutel, Andy McDonald, Steve Whitman, Bill Bolton, and myself are present. We have a couple things. First is public comments unrelated to the agenda. Seeing none, we'll move on to the agenda. The first thing we have is a site plan review to discuss and hear public comments regarding proposed construction by the university for 348-bed student residence on Merrill Street. So there will be discussion among the board in a public hearing. The board does not have any authority to approve or disapprove this project. However, the university is required to take our comments, if we have any, and also take comments for the public. So if someone from the university would like to present their plan, that would be great.
Thank you. For those of you that don't know me, I'm Steve Axel, Vice President of Finance and Administration at Plymouth State. I've been here several times before for other projects, so there are a few familiar faces, but a lot of new ones too. We're happy to be here tonight to present our project. We have our design team here with us, and they'll be talking about a lot of the details in terms of the project and the site. But before we get into that, I wanted to do a few introductions and then make some opening comments about why we're doing this and why it's important to the college. So I'll do that and then ask our project folks to lead you through the site plan. So first, let me introduce the rest of the folks who are here tonight with me. Our lead project manager and associate principal from Perkins & Will is Rinalda Angel, to my left. Chad Montrose from RFS, our engineering firm, is also here. And you probably know Ellen Shippey, our director of physical plant for Plymouth State University. So thank you for being here. We have had a fairly interesting couple of years at Plymouth State with respect to enrollment. And as of last fall, we had an increase in our student population of 300 students, give or take, over the prior fall. So there's been quite a bump in enrollment year over year. At the same time, we have a new president who started at Plymouth State, Dr. Donald Burks. He came to Plymouth in July of last year and really started to chart a little bit of a different path for the university. If you follow college enrollment in general in the Northeast, it's on the decline based on the number of high school graduates. But we've had a pretty good year here with respect to opposing that trend. The president has charted out a new course for the university with respect to growing enrollment modestly over the next several years. He believes it's important for the university to reach a higher capacity in order to do the things that we need to do as we restructure how we operate and decide what programs and offerings we're going to make in the future. The biggest limiting factor in terms of our growth is housing. We're a residential campus, we'll always be a residential campus. We've had some online offerings. We do offer an online MBA as well. But at the core of who Plymouth State is we're a residential college campus serving undergraduates. All those extra 300 students that came to Plymouth this past fall were tripled up into essentially double-sized rooms, but putting 3 people in a room. All the data suggests that that's not really the optimal scenario when you want to retain students. So when you're putting more people in a small space, it doesn't really yield the results you want. But we managed through that. At the same time, we started to explore alternatives this past fall in terms of trying to determine what we were going to do if enrollment continued on the same track. Our current projections indicate that enrollment is likely to increase again next fall, not by as many, but about 100. But the compound effect of even 100 more students based on the extra 300 we had last year, really creates some stress at the university. The president then charged us with figuring out how we can build additional facilities on campus to house those students and to take care of their other needs as they're residents of the campus. Our preference, and it's our belief the town's preference, is to house those students on existing college property to limit the impact on the community with respect to increasing rental property in neighborhoods beyond what exists today. And so we've taken that charge seriously. We have received approval from our board of trustees to proceed with the project, and we're moving ahead accordingly. Our goal is to begin the construction project soon, as soon as the winter ends, and complete it around the fall of 2017. We have a conceptual plan for a second building. If enrollment continues to build, we won't make that decision for a while, but if we do, we have another spot on the campus that we would consider. So we think we can contain everything on existing campus boundaries to meet our needs. So those are the only opening comments I'd like to make relative to the project, but we have an excellent design team in place, and I think the goal today is to really run through, in terms of where we are right now, the overall concept, the design, and we're prepared to answer hopefully all your questions tonight. And if there are any questions we can't answer tonight, we will take those and gather up whatever responses we can and feed that back to perhaps Sharon or in some other mechanism, but I think we can probably answer most of it tonight. So at this point, what I'm going to do is turn it over to our lead project manager, Yanel DeAngel, and she'll lead you through the basic project. Yeah.
16, so. Hello. I think maybe start by explaining where the project is located so everyone knows contextually where it sits. I do my best to make sure that everyone can see this. You will probably have handouts, so the order of the boards is the same order of the handouts. So the first page is just a location map that has the project site right along Merrill Street in the most residential part of campus. So it's right there where the red area is. So we can come back to this. If we were to blow up that area, the next page shows you what's there currently. So there's Merrill Street, and you probably are familiar with Center Lodge, which is the building that we color in green. And right to the left of that, there is a few houses that you can see along Merrill Street, and behind that, a parking lot. So the site is located right in that parking lot, and we will be taking down 2 of those houses to make way for the building on Merrill Street. Can everyone see that? There is an existing road that cuts from Merrill Street down to the back of this apartments here. That road, even though it's marked within the perimeter of the site, is to remain. It's just that, it's kind of the area that gets affected. So if you go to the third page of your handout, this is the proposed site landscape around the building. The white area where you can see some plan there, that is the footprint of the building. And you can see that Toby Road remains. There are no new curb cuts on Merrill Street. We are keeping the 30-foot setback from Merrill Street, which is a setback that we are respecting all along. The building itself, the shape of the building was driven by a necessity to really have a massing that is contextual to the scale of the neighborhood. So when you look at the site, this piece here that it's towards the left of the page is a multi-purpose room that is lower in scale and is tucked kind of into the topography. And then the longer bar that you see is the residential area. So at the ground level, there are only amenities and 2 apartments for the residential advisors. And then above that ground level full of amenities is where you will see all the beds for the students. It was mentioned earlier about 348 beds. A good 2/3 of that is hotel style, and the other is semi-suites, which is essentially 2 bedrooms connected through a bathroom. Do you want to talk about this next? Through the building. So you should have a ground level, and the multi-purpose space that I was mentioning is in green. You can see tables located in that area. That's really a space that could be rented. It has a separate entrance and could be completely autonomously operated from the residential hall. There are bathrooms, etc., that will service that. Residents will enter at the corner of Merrill Street and Toby Road into a very open lounge environment. There is a lot of glass in this corner for that public space. And what you see in blue towards the right, those are the 2 apartments. And the rest of the spaces are in support of the students. Laundry room, the residential director's office, a bike storage, and that kind of space, those kinds of spaces. Mechanical room will also be at that ground level. The typical residential level looks like this. And everything that you see in gray here and here is a very low roof at the ground level. You can see you come up the elevators and there will be a lounge, but pretty much it's a double-loaded corridor with rooms at either side.
If I could add, there are 2 room types she's speaking of. The hotel style really means 2 beds and 1 bath in 1 room. And the suite style means 2 connecting rooms with a bath in between.
Like a Jack and Jill.
Correct, like a 4-person unit with a bathroom. So there's a high concentration of bathrooms in the facility, so we can use it for other purposes during non-academic years.
The next 2 pages should be the elevations. The material for the building is a very contextual red brick. There is some amount of metal panels for some areas, but for the most part, the ground level for the common areas is very glassy. If there are any questions about the elevations, I'd be happy to come back. I think this perspective is the best illustration of what the building looks like in the context. You can see the entry in the corner at Merrill Street is going to be very transparent, very active. The multi-purpose room, a lower roof that is going to be active when it's rented. There is a pre-function space that is adjacent to Merrill Street. Then the brick facade building with the windows corresponding to the bedrooms. The mechanical equipment in the roof is contained inside a penthouse. Maybe you want to open that?
So on the top level or on the roof of the building, there is an enclosed mechanical house which will house all the ventilation equipment for the building and air handlers and stuff like that. So it is an enclosed structure, so you wouldn't necessarily see any of the equipment.
For gear and equipment?
There is an exterior chiller in a portion of it that does need to be open to the sky, but it is surrounded by walls. We are specifying a high quality unit with a sound attenuation package to mitigate as much sound as possible.
I would just add, prior to engaging our architects to design the project, the campus considered four other locations on the campus, and for a variety of reasons, they just weren't going to work out. The timeline is very tight. I mean, we went from 0 to 60 in like 3 or 4 months, and so we had to pick a site that we thought was the most workable and practical in order to get the project done to meet the housing needs. We think we could be short as many as 500 beds by the time we get to the fall of 17. So it's really important we keep the project moving along so we can house all those students on campus.
So I should push a little bit on schedule.
Yeah.
So we are right now in a phase called design development, and we will be entering construction documents very soon. The mobilization for construction starts April 11th, and that first phase of mobilization is really mobilizing everything, getting the fences in and all of that. Obviously, when foundations are happening, that's when you're going to get some of the more noisy activity. The rest of the construction schedule is a regular construction activity. And the idea is to occupy by August 1st of 2017.
Any questions or comments from the board?
So how tall is that building?
So we are not technically a high rise because we are below 75 feet in height. So the total height of the building from the average grade is no taller than that.
75, less than 75,
Yeah, below 75 for
with a
sure.
penthouse. I bet the other buildings in town are pretty jealous. And just a general question, as far as like, so this will gain 348 beds, and Belknap is like reopening or something like that, or are we getting beds with Belknap as well?
That's already open.
Oh, it is, okay, was that like an extra 100 or something like that? or-
Yeah, I think it's 120 maybe. That's already open.
Okay,
We had to rush to get that open this past fall, once we understood what the enrollment was going to be. We really had to two-step it to get something open.
So what's the energy policy as far as designing this building? What have you been looking at as far as energy usage and so on?
Yep. So the main energy system for the building will be the campus cogeneration plant, which is located up on the north end of campus. We are designing the building as a highly sustainable building. It's going to be similar to what we've done for Langdon Woods type design. We're tracking it right now, but generally the average residential, we're about 20-25% less than the average residential hall nationwide.
Well, we're actually tying into the New Hampshire co-op for power. And I believe we're using, what's the energy source?
Yep. So we're tying into the campus electric, tying into campus steam for the heating source. The only town utilities we're really connecting to, or the public utilities we're connecting to, are sewer and water. We met with the village water sewer district 2 weeks ago, so that we're at design working through design right now. So we're gonna, we'll be submitting permits to the town and the state for sewer connection and stuff like that. So we're on schedule for all the appropriate permits.
John?
Will this mean any updating for any of the utilities such as sewer and water?
Nope. We met with them 2 weeks ago. We're still working through the design right now, but based on our initial meeting, there really wasn't any identification that there's an issue with overall capacity. So.
And if you do need any improvements or anything, does the college pay for that, or does the town pay for that?
That I don't know the answer.
Well, the college being the biggest consumer on the grid, and I think we'd end up paying for it anyway. But you talked about the capital cost?
Yes.
Yeah, I don't know. We haven't gotten that far. Right now, it's not an issue because we think we can.
Because it's not built.
Excuse me?
Because it's not built.
No, when it's built, the current capacity should carry the existing, the new population.
So the process for that is, once we finish our design, we'll submit it to the town for review of those districts.
District.
And they have a third-party engineer that reviews that. So they'll be reviewed by another engineer company to confirm that
Okay,
they are.
and the second question is, orientate me as far as Bailey Avenue, is that the little houses shown behind the actual building?
It's not long, it's not down as far as Bailey Avenue. It's
No,
not,
but-
it's 16 and 14 Merrill Street.
No, he's talking about the border.
The board, in other words,
You're right.
with the buildings on Bailey Avenue that will sort of overpower, overshadow those buildings so that they, before they had a forest in back of them, now they've got a building.
There is a drawing that explains it, but I don't have it with me. The height of this multipurpose room is no higher than the houses next to it.
Right,
And by the time we get to this point, if you were to stand in that house, this roof is only about 9 feet high.
right,
from
but
the-
you also got probably, 80, 100 feet. There's three-story buildings, there's a lot of other buildings that are.
Well, you're worried about the casting of a shadow.
Yeah, or
So,
just the view and stuff like that.
yeah, well, that's an important question. So we did a shadow study, and essentially, if anything, because this is, so this is almost, true north.
Right, right.
So if anything, is this area of the parking within the property that will get the shadow.
That's all the west side.
Mhm.
And east side comes the sun.
Right.
That's gonna hide the sun for all that, the four houses.
That's what I'm saying.
So this is the tallest part. So when the sun hits and casts a shadow, it casts a shadow here in the parking lot area. This building is very low to cast a shadow into the houses.
That's my house right here, and I put right there.
I understand. I'm saying that when we did a shadow study, which I guess we could share next time, when the sun hits this way, the shadow ends here. It doesn't go beyond the property line.
You guarantee that?
I can share the studies that we
At the
did.
different times of the
Of the
year,
year.
you get the different shadows. 'Cause I live there, I get the sun early in the morning.
Mhm.
I won't be getting it when that building is there. I won't be seeing it probably till noon.
Share the study.
Yeah, we can share the study.
Another
We
thing,
can-
can I make,
Why
ask
don't-
questions?
Why don't we just hang on for a minute, and then we'll open to the public, and
Okay.
you can take off right at the beginning.
Well, I thought you had it there.
Any other comments from the board?
I just had a question. You guys are taking out the parking lot there. Is there a plan to add additional parking to
That was gonna be one of my
alleviate some of that?
questions.
Yeah, we're looking at other alternatives on campus. We think that we can reconfigure some of our other parking spaces on campus to accommodate that loss of parking. It won't be 100%, but we think we'll be within 15 spots of where we are now. So that's a separate project that we're looking at, but our goal is to try to maintain the same level of parking.
By the time the building opens?
Yeah.
Okay, so
We haven't decided yet, but that's our goal.
okay, so that year it'll be a little bit tight with that lot, just for that year? Okay, all
Correct.
right, thank you.
So regarding the residential purpose too, I mean, you anticipate serving groups during the summer and maybe like the Gordon Conferees or something like that, or, I mean, would it be open to the public? I mean, like the Center in New Hampshire was open to the public, and,
That's our intent, but we haven't really, again, gotten that far yet. I mean, we need to, our goal is to try to build up a little bit of a summer sort of conference business with groups coming in so we can more fully utilize the space. It's being designed to basically accommodate about 300 people, give or take, a little bit more. We'll be able to serve meals out of there. The space can be subdivided into two smaller units that allows controlled access for presentations, meals, breakout rooms, whatever we want. The rooms upstairs will actually also accommodate very nicely, we think, a group of 150 to 250 people. So, but certainly it would be available, for those purposes.
Any other comments from the board?
I have a couple,
Sure.
if I may. Steve, this is just for general background information. What's the parking policy for undergraduates? Are freshmen and sophomores allowed to have vehicles?
Yes.
Okay, so you have a potential for a lot of additional cars on campus, but you know that, you said that and I realize that. In the schematic, especially on page 3, is all the, generally speaking, is all the parking that's shown going to remain, particularly as it relates to the new building right in that vicinity? I mean, it's drawn in off of Toby Road and next to the campus boundary, so can we presume that that's going to remain?
Oh, yeah, in fact, the area we're talking about, we've done a little bit, our architects have done a little bit of work on this. What we think we can do is reconfigure this whole space here. And if we reconfigure it, we can gain a significant amount of parking. So our goal is to have as much parking in this general area as exists now. But again, it won't be a one-to-one match, we'll be short of few spaces.
Well, I'm sure this will come up in further discussion, but personally, I have a little bit of a concern about traffic impacts or a potential for traffic and pedestrian impacts, but I'm sure you're considering that, because that's quite a few more bodies in that area.
Is it across from right where Langdon turns onto? Okay. Again, just a pedestrian issue there. The sidewalk discontinues right there. It's actually not that easy to get to Merrill Street from Langdon Street, and I see that being a pretty busy corridor right there.
So are you talking about this purple pedestrian way?
No, I'm talking about if this is Langdon Street right here, coming out right here. The sidewalk ends, crosses here,
okay.
and then there's the sidewalk is not really non-existent. there.
Just around that.
I mean, it's an issue now, but I see with a lot more students living there, I think it's going to be more of an issue.
We should look at that one.
Yes, right now, as you know, right in front of Center Lodge, there is that pedestrian crossing, and you're tying one here because of the entrance in the corner to connect back to over this. But that is a good point along that end, especially with the multipurpose room being there.
Any comments from the board? Seeing none, we'd like to open this to questions and comments from the public. So I'm opening the public hearing at 2 minutes of 7. And please state your name and where you live.
I'm on Reset, I live on Bailey Avenue, and I'm a butter. And I was wondering if the windows in that building are gonna be stationary, or you're gonna be able to open them up, or?
It's because it's a residence. Everyone by code needs to have the right to open a window.
And throw stuff out,
Well,
plates and stuff, onto my property?
We hope not, but
And all that noise from their loudspeakers and everything? 340 rooms?
it's 175 rooms, I believe, 348 people.
That's a lot of noise coming from one place. I'm 85 years old and I need my rest. I got about 30 students living on Bailey Avenue right now. This is for the college kids. So is this one, and there's one across the street from me,
and your house is here.
right there, yeah. I'm worried about all that noise that's gonna go on and all those kids up there. And they climbed that fence in back of my house, right there, like I was about there, they go down there to buy beer and stuff from the other college kids to buy beer for them. And they go over my fence all the time. So if you put a 20-foot fence there, electrical, maybe it'll help.
You in trouble. You in trouble.
Do you have any other comments from the public?
I have a question. I'm Kim Lamb, and I live in Plymouth. Is it a freshman, sophomore dorm, or is it upper class dorm? Is that?
It'll probably be mostly freshmen, sophomores. We don't require juniors and seniors to live on campus, so most of the campus is really freshmen and sophomores anyway.
So that surplus of kids will have to go out into the surrounding community as juniors and seniors, probably.
Well, there won't be any surplus if we build a facility.
So then you would expect juniors and seniors to live on campus?
No, it's no change from the current policy right now. So if we can house all the new incoming students on campus, the same proportion of juniors and seniors that would move off campus, would continue to do that. There might be a slight increase, but if we can accommodate most students on campus, it should be fairly modest.
Any other comments or questions?
Yes, my name is Joe Gardner, and I work with I represent the highway department. So a couple concerns is the way the parking lot's set up in the back, you're gonna access Toby Road. So just the influx of traffic on that back side of the road is kind of a concern to me. There's a blind corner when you get to the top up there.
Here?
Right, so at some point I'd like to just go over that with the engineer. My other concern is I haven't seen any way out of the infrastructure for the water, but I'd like to look at that also to see where it ties in with the towns, if that's possible.
Yeah, that's possible, Joe. Connected with it. I noticed on high side there's a 90 pound, there's a low side up there. We're tying into the 90,
Tying in the high pressure.
the high pressure side. Which happy walking through.
Great.
Yeah, and as far as the drainage, all the drainage work is confined to the site. And we are going to be putting underground detention ponds in to mitigate the amount of flow going off the site.
Okay.
But we can provide the drawings.
Sure.
When we get to it.
Anyone else like to ask a question?
I'm Kevin Young. I live on Langdon Park Road. We have been speculating what this would look like after hearing about it just about a week and a half ago. And I must admit there's obvious neighborhood concern about the impact on our neighborhood and quality of life. We've had 2 years of conflict over a house of 4 people, and now we have 348 a block and a half away. We've always considered the college a good neighbor. I would like to bring up one thing that was mentioned, and I'm not sure if it's a good idea or not, but the neighborhood has brought up whether it would be possible to block off part of Merrill Street to orient traffic north-south and emphasize pedestrian traffic and discourage the east-west traffic into the neighborhoods, in part because we'd like to preserve the quality of our town neighborhood, and in part because Merrill Street, even at this point, has safety issues with the rise in the road and the sun setting over the rise with the current level of traffic that uses skateboards, a variety of reasons. So we'd just like to mention that to people.
Any comments, minors, on that traffic issue?
I don't think it's up to the college to determine where the roads can be closed or not. We can help assess that if you like, but that's not in our purview.
That would be the first step, and then concern with that information would be brought up to the Board of Selectmen to that level, working with the Highway Department manager. So, perhaps that's a little side thing.
So that's something we could discuss with Joe and his department. Okay. Any other comments or questions from the public? Okay, we're going to close the public hearing at 5 minutes after 7. Bring this back to the board for any additional final questions or comments.
Perhaps, I know Steve and I correspond regularly on these issues, and I'm very pleased that the university is working, in the way it's supposed to under this RSA, which basically gives immunity from any zoning, because they're a governmental agency. So I just hope perhaps we can continue to get updates. I know you're in a tight time frame with design, but as you get significant updates, you can shoot a set of plans over and I can disseminate it. I don't know if you feel the need for an update, as your process goes along, to maybe help assuage some of the fears and issues that some of the abutters have, but I think communication is very much the key here, because this is significant. It is significant.
Bill?
Steve, you presented a master plan for PSU a couple of years ago, and in it there was like the renovation of the relocation of like a Prospect Hall and a dining hall. Is this going to like increase the capacity of the need for a larger dining hall?
That's a good question. In 2011, we had peak enrollments that were greater than our projected enrollment with 338 students. So we can accommodate all of the students with our current residence hall.
Okay.
Right now, we're not thinking we're going to build a new dining facility. That wasn't the master plan, but the master plan is a plan. And so the cost of doing that is just pretty expensive. So if we do anything at all, it would probably be a little bit down the road, and we would renovate Prospect as opposed to building something brand new.
Okay.
But if we think we can accommodate all of these students with existing services, creating more flexibility in meal plans, and extending hours and things like that. So again, this is, even with the 350 students, that's less than our peak from 2010, 2011.
And the renovation for Prospect would include a better access for trucks to drop off stuff?
We would hope so.
Okay.
It's not ideal now.
Maybe a comment more, not really germane to this project specifically, but we hear a lot here at the planning board about issues in the neighborhoods just surrounding the university, mostly with kids misbehaving late at night and so on and so forth. Could you just give us a quick rundown of what the university's program is for dealing with abutters and community issues?
I'm sorry, I'm not really closely connected to that. I mean, I know that there's a community group. I know that Vice President Jim Hunreiser is pretty actively engaged in working with landlords and abutters. So I'm sorry, I can't really comment on that. I don't know how it's working or what kinds of things they're doing, but I know there's an active program right now that and has been for a while to try to address community concerns, help the landlords with behavior issues, things like that. So I'd have to get back to you with more specifics.
Yeah, I guess we'd appreciate it if you kind of pass that along, because we do hear a lot about it here at planning board.
Would you like somebody from the university to come to one of your meetings?
Yes, and I think from what I'm hearing Steve say, I mean, this is a little bit of a different residential aspect. I'd be curious to know what the parameters are, through residential life for infractions such as noise and in university-sponsored housing, because it's a little slightly, there must be some sort of protocols in place for that. Yeah, yes, please.
Yes, we'll pass that on and talk to Sharon about it.
And if I could just emphasize again, this is a really good opportunity to try to do some proactive planning about the pedestrian and traffic aspects of this. There will be impacts, and I know, the common wisdom sometimes as well. It's, you know, it's a mess anyway, and I'm just doing this little part, but this is part of a comprehensive plan, and it grows and grows and grows. So I know you're fairly far forward in the design aspect, but just, for example, like Rebecca said, if you're missing 75 feet of sidewalk, this is the time to do it, because it's going to have to be done eventually. If there are safety issues, it's going to cost 3 times as much, and you know, there's going to be some issues in the interim that are going to generate that. So, you know, if we could be as user-friendly as possible, this is the time to do it.
With that in mind, and just building off your point, Rebecca, about that piece of sidewalk, if this is going to have a summertime use, I was just thinking as you were talking about this, if the participants would use the Hyde Hall lot, we might just have another need for another crosswalk.
Yeah, stuff like
They're not
that.
going to necessarily go past Hyde. I would.
And that's where you would work directly with the town on implementing that, so. Thank you.
Cool. Any other questions, comments? Thank you very much for bringing this to our attention. Okay, we're going to move on. So, last month, or the month before, I don't remember when it was, we did a subdivision for the skate park. And the owner of the land indicated his desire to give it to the town. And before it can go before the town, for the Board of Select Board for their approval, we need to wave our holy water over this or not. And at least that's how I understand it.
Yeah, there's a statute that directly gives guidance for municipal acquisition or acceptance of donations of land. The skate park subdivision, one lot subdivision that you guys approved in December, as you know, was being donated by Mr. Alex Ray to the town with the skate park intact, almost 4 acres as a recreational, new recreational component of the town. But the statute directly requires the planning board and the Conservation Commission to, as you said, essentially bless this or not, to provide an endorsement, which would be put forth as a motion and approved or disapproved, and then we have to get some correspondence to that effect, because this whole thing has to go before the body politic at a public hearing to be voted on.
Okay, so we can open this for discussion amongst the board. If one has any comments?
I just happen to have, if anybody wants to look at this again, but it was pretty straightforward. Oh, you got.
Does everybody know what we're talking about? Okay. So can I have a motion that we endorse this project? There's no discussion.
Move to endorse it. Second.
All those in favor of endorsing this project, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please say nay. All right, so Sharon,
Thank
will
you.
you?
Yep, I'll type something up and you can sign it.
I'd like to thank you very much. I had no idea what to expect. I'm in here thinking, is this a trap? But no, I really appreciate, I know Alex, of course, donated the land, but I think that this park is going to be great for the town. I think it already is. I think it's going to be even better. We have some expansion stuff we want to do, and I'm going to work with the town around how we're going to do that. We have monies available to add on in the spring, and we just
That's great stuff.
did a good project. I think it's great for the town, and I really appreciate the planning board and the other departments in the town who really support us. I think it's a great thing for the young kids in the area. So thanks a lot. I appreciate it.
Can I ask just 2 questions now that we've endorsed it? There's been a bunch of work that was going on there, like just kind of cleaning up brush and a bunch of excavator work. Was there like what was the purpose behind it, I guess? Just curious.
In terms of Alex putting a bunch of fill in there?
Yeah.
I think, well, he wants to smooth that all out and grass it, I believe, and just make it look nicer.
Okay.
So anything that's going to go forward, there'll be no kind of, to my knowledge, we don't need plans for any kind of construction to outside of the park. In the park, we're going to be adding features and quarter pipes on the end. We have money set aside for that, and that's all part of phase 2. And the phase 3, we've already pretty much got the ability to finish that. So we've got some fundraising going on through next fall, and I've got to figure out how we can make that money go towards the park. And I know there's different statutes and whatnot that have to be addressed in that. But really, there's going to be, nothing's going to change down there in terms of that, other than trying to pretty it up a little bit. And that's Alex's plan anyway.
So it wasn't anything the town had required you to do, it was something he elected to do?
Yeah.
He liked running the back, the.
Oh, I can imagine.
Whatever he was doing.
Backhoe, bobcat, anything mechanical, he's like the boy with his Tonka truck, so.
And I guess my other question was just the process. Does it just go to the selectmen for the public hearing at this point?
Yes,
Well, my understanding is the Conservation Commission.
they have to weigh in also, yeah, I'd said that earlier.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, so that was what I was given, and then there's well, then I think I'm coming into the Monday meeting to talk to the select board. They've asked me to show up.
Yes, and the public hearing is the 22nd of
22nd.
February?
Then the second one I think is March 8th.
So you're on next Monday's agenda for the select board?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
One more post-endorsement question. The management of the park, is that going to fall under the Parks and Rec, or?
I would believe so.
Okay.
It's eventually, yeah, as it transitions, that's my understanding.
I hope my wife's not watching, but I was going to talk to Larry Gibson and the town to maybe be a part of the Parks Committee just to help out.
We can make it a condition of
spare
approval
time?
if you want.
Yeah.
It's not too late.
That's right.
Sorry, Robin, right. Thank you.
Thanks a lot.
Thanks.
Thank you. Thanks, Mike.
Thank you, it's a great project.
And I'm going to juggle the agenda here a little bit, and let's get Tara up here and talk about our breakout groups, I guess.
And wanted to introduce our new executive director, Dr. Barbara Robinson.
Hello. Hey, Barbara.
Tell a little bit about yourself.
Well, I live in Ellsworth. You may have seen me in Plymouth. I've been here for 16 years, so I'm not new to the area. I also worked on the Enterprise Center, did the plan for that. And I'm delighted to be working with North Country Council in this new capacity. I was a rep for them prior to that, so. And I look forward to coming to more of your meetings.
Before he goes on vacation.
If you have any questions, please reach out to me.
Great.
Thanks.
Every time I come, you're a new member. Carol Bamford, I'm helping with your master plan.
Gene Thurston.
Oh, yeah, by the way, this is your new colleague, Gene Thurston, who doesn't have a nameplate yet. Sorry, Gene.
Well, I have one, it's just not as
Well,
fancy as
it's
everybody else's.
rudimentary.
Soon enough.
Yes.
So you only get that in paper for the first month or two, and then we get you a real one if you make the cut.
Thanks. If I last that long,
Then you feel you have to stay because you have a name.
I have a name.
So this is the list of the four topical areas we talked about dividing these meetings into. These are as a reminder, or if you weren't here from the beginning, we included in the work plan having 4 roundtable discussions where you would invite experts and knowledgeable people to help you update the recommendations that were in the last plan. I don't see it so much as having the recommendations in hand and marking them up, but we'd certainly want people to look at those before the meeting and have it as a handout. But I see it as more kind of your opportunity to pick their brains, to ask questions, to listen. I think it's more about those experts and other interested parties this time than the public. You'll want to include the public and invite the public, people with an interest in the topic, but it's not going to be like the visioning session that we had in the summer so much. This is more rolling up the sleeves and working together on recommendations. As we talked about, the last plan was a little bit pie in the sky in that every idea anybody had was in their recommendation. Implementation wasn't so good because of that. So we want to leave these meetings with a few targeted, well thought out steps that you'll put in the plan. So you all need to do the hard work of getting those people there. So what I thought we should do tonight is start talking about who would be good to invite and who could volunteer based on their knowledge of somebody talk about dates maybe as well, because I think we need to start thinking about outreach. So I'm afraid to ask the hard question that I bug Sharon about every day, but when do you think the survey might go out? What I'm thinking is
Next week or the week after.
I-
We've had every
okay.
glitch known to man.
I know,
Including
and
the
they-
copier blowing up.
I
So,
know,
yeah,
I
it's
knew
just
about a lot of them,
Yeah.
but probably not all, so.
it's not as easy as it looks.
Just what I'm thinking is if you're gonna give people 3 weeks, probably.
Yeah, at least, not too long.
Not more than that. People are gonna do it or they're not.
And we are doing stamped, so it's postage return
okay.
envelopes, so that should motivate, hopefully.
Oh, so there's gonna be,
Return envelopes on the 2100 to the property owner.
okay.
So hopefully that'll encourage people to
So
get
there's gonna,
some data and get it
so
out
you need to
quickly.
allow time then for data entry too, for you guys to do data entry. Thinking that you were moving more toward electronic and the results would be more instant, we could go like, we could start a couple weeks after the due date,
Jean,
but
could you grab that calendar on the wall behind you?
you're gonna need more.
Can I just ask, just two quick questions, Tara. Are the 4 proposed topic areas, are those set, or can we add something to one of them? I'm just thinking energy, putting my energy commission hat on, energy I think could be added maybe to the 4th one, and that there's a lot of folks that, maybe key stakeholders that might be able to contribute to the energy conversation. And then the second part of my question was just, were you thinking to have the survey results back so that we could share some initial feedback with
Well, the
these?
survey results need to drive the implementation steps, certainly, so.
You want these folks to talk specifically about implementation steps, not just
Right.
issues? Okay.
Yeah, I mean, that's how we wrote the scope, that this is updating the implementation plan in your current plan. You could certainly include energy in the conversation. I'm not picturing it, that it's in there now.
We have an energy chapter the previous planning board reviewed but never adopted.
Yeah.
So there's one that's been sitting there since 2005, I think.
Could that be a subset of business growth and economic development? I mean, I see that as a,
Or number 4, infrastructure.
It's hard kind of to see it as something that's not related to
everything, actually.
to everything, like land use. I didn't make land use a separate topic either. That will kind of come out of it all.
Just a question.
Well, I think it's worth putting it in there, because if it's in there, people will talk about it. If it's not in there, and if it's not in there, no one
Right.
will talk about it.
One,
It's a huge
you need
force
to think,
around here.
You need to
Yeah.
think about how long you want these sessions to be. I'm thinking really I need 2.5 hours for these lists the way they are now to make this a valuable thing. I'm thinking a half an hour to go over the relevant survey results and why are we there, right? Probably then an hour, even with all these topics and all those recommendations, is going to be kind of a speed dating approach. So then you want to give people a break, and then talk a little bit about priorities. So you leave with some priorities picked out, because that's one of the issues that you've all brought up with the past plan, is there were no priorities. It's just, let's do all these things.
everything
So-
was a priority.
Yeah, so
That's
hardly
right.
anything happened. And then maybe 15 minutes to wrap up and have people tell us what last thought they had, what we didn't cover, what next steps they might want to be involved in. So that really is about 2.5 hours. So if it's weeknights, we're thinking probably like 6:30 to 9. If you think you can get people out on Saturdays, then it's probably something more like 9:30 to noon.
I doubt people want to go on weekends, but,
I don't want to go on a weekend.
yeah, I wouldn't.
Well, then nobody else is coming,
Yeah.
so.
Yeah, it's,
Yeah.
so I have a couple questions before you get too much further. What is the work product of these sessions going to be, number one? And number two, are you going to be at all of them or any of them?
I'm going to be facilitating all of them.
Okay,
Yeah,
so you'll be at each one.
right.
Okay, so what's the work product?
It's going to be input toward updating your implementation plan. I mean,
So there'll be notes or summary that you write, or
Yeah.
that the group writes, or
That I write.
that you write? Okay.
And we don't, I mean, the intent wouldn't be to leave those sessions and say, there's your implementation plan, but, so my thought is it's really the opportunity for you to harvest information into that, but then you'd have more discussions about them. It's not gonna be your last shot at them, so you're gonna do more listening and asking than discussing at those, so that you make the most of that time that you have the other people there. And then we'll schedule follow-up meetings at these sessions for you to talk more about, well, what does that mean, looking at the data, looking at the results of the visioning session, looking at the survey results.
Question. The Conservation Commission is getting some product through Amy and Plymouth State students, like natural resource mapping, ecological services.
There's been talk of that, but I don't think that is something that is actually happening at this point.
Okay, because I was wondering about timeline.
Ye-
So you don't think that they're working on it this
No, no.
semester? Oh, last I knew, I thought they were.
It'd be news to me, but
I'm just thinking that, Tara, the reason I was asking the question is if there was some mapping using Granite and the action plan stuff that was coming out, I wanted to check on the timeline, because if those map resources were available, we could use them in this process. So I just wanted you to be aware so we can check. I'll see Amy tomorrow.
yeah, I've heard talk of it, but I didn't know that it was actually something that was happening.
Okay.
Yeah, so.
And the reason for that, I was thinking, if you're seeing land use kind of woven through these four, so you think we'll extract from this information and the survey and other input what the future land use implementation plan would
I
be?
think it'll sketch it in.
Start of it, yeah, and what I thought I'd do as part of the prep material is go through your list of land use recommendations and pull out the ones that tie in well to each of these topics, and that will be on the list of existing recommendations that they have.
Great.
In hand, too. It may be, in order to kind of capture the PSU community, that we need to pull this first one out and have it earlier. And then, maybe the others aren't such a rush and we can allow that time for the data entry. Because I wasn't really thinking that. When I was kind of thinking we could have these end of April, May, and beginning of June, but that's a little soon. If you're not gonna have it out still for a couple of weeks, it's gonna be out there 3 weeks, and you guys are doing the data entry, that's.
No, I was just gonna say, because the public school system, you run into the vacations.
That's gonna put some key dates on here too. I looked a few things up.
We're on track for that. No snow days this year so far.
Yeah, so
You're a happy
that's
man.
why I was thinking end of
I like
April,
summer.
May, and beginning of June before people leave on summer vacations. But I don't think you can do that with the delays have been in the survey. It's really important that we have the survey results. Not so much for the first session, but for the second, third, and fourth. So we might want to hold off on giving those dates till the survey actually gets out. And
You mean the dates for the roundtables? Yeah.
for the second, third, and fourth one.
Right.
And you probably don't need to do this at a meeting, but maybe Sharon could kind of poll each of you to see what you're gonna be willing to volunteer in terms of the data entry, and then we can kind of guesstimate how long it's gonna take and see from that, if you have 12 people hours a week, we can kind of figure out how many weeks that's
We
gonna
have to
take.
do the data entry ourselves.
Right, so
And that Survey Monkey.
into survey.
But
But, so we can kind of guesstimate how long it's gonna take, and you can kind of see how many people hours a week you think you can come up with, and from that, we can have kind of a date. And it'll be Sharon's job to crack that whip and make sure that you make it, because you'll have a hard deadline in order to be able to have the survey results for those meetings.
Do we know what the return rate was in the previous survey?
Yeah, it was pretty high. Something was like 40%, but I don't know, we'll never achieve 40% with the amount of people that we're, going out to. So I don't know how that was targeted.
Yeah. I don't either. But we have all these different venues, so we, I think I'm no statistician, but, between the PSU email and the general online thing and the paper survey, we've got a couple different methods.
You're not gonna know a response rate for the residents because there are so many bad voters on your list.
That's it.
But you'll have a response rate for property owners because you know exactly how many you mail.
We're
It
gonna
sounds
get
like
returns,
that should be
we're gonna get
pretty-
return service on the postcards though, so we will know.
Ka-ching, yeah.
We'll be able to eliminate all the bad
On the,
addresses.
On the paper surveys.
Oh, that's a good point.
You're not doing them both. In 7,000 postcards, you're not doing both.
Oh, yeah, no, that's something else.
So those won't come back.
Those won't come back. That just directs, the online people to the online survey. That's the advertising component. The paper
Right.
surveys get a return envelope with postage, the old-fashioned way.
You would need to pay, I think it's in the ballpark of 50 cents each to get return service on those. I don't know if you want to do that on the postcard.
Not on postcards. I'm a little confused here. So the property owner's getting paper, correct?
With a stamp.
Everybody
return
on the
envelope.
voters list is getting a postcard, correct?
Yes, because
And
there are
there's like
7,000 of them.
7,000. So the ones that are on the voters list, if they're not at that address, it will come back to us. That's part of the service.
It's a bulk mailing permit out of the online mailing company.
It depends on if we put something on there that says return service requested, everything will come back to us.
Right.
Or it'll get if it doesn't say that, which I imagine it's not going to because then you have to pay for it to come back to you. It'll get forwarded unless there's no forwarding address or the forward is expired.
Right. So we'll get some idea.
We'll get some idea.
We'll get some idea.
I mean, it doesn't help us trim down the voter list because you can't.
When I was doing direct mail, it didn't cost anything to have the return service.
We're not gonna trim down any list. It's not our database.
Right, but we were talking about the response rate, and I don't think you're gonna be able to say with that, with any accuracy.
No, it's a brave new world this time around. Just be happy with getting.
But for property owners, you will.
Yeah,
And-
right.
And that
right.
should be pretty good with a stamp.
Which
return
that's an
envelope.
interesting aspect to see what the return rate is on
Andy?
people that pay taxes.
From a date standpoint, and on the heels of our conversation earlier about the new residence hall going up, does it make sense to try and schedule that first meeting within the next month?
I wanted,
Is that too quick? I mean, I don't know if we're needing that data. If it's talking about university planning, I don't know if that's the right time to do that or what. If that's the venue that you want to get community in. Does that make sense?
Well, the university planning, as I understand it now, is pretty long range.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't think there's going to be anything new that would pop up.
Yep.
They're fairly entrenched because it's just such a huge, costly effort every
Right.
time they do something.
I wanted to throw out, if you wanted to stick with Thursdays, April 14th is a possibility.
Is that the third?
It's the second.
Second?
Yeah,
Okay.
so you'd still have your hearing on the regular date. And then we'd meet the week before to just review the details and all.
Tara,
Yeah.
how big are you envisioning these groups of stakeholders would be?
I wondered if we should, not require, but say that an RSVP would be appreciated this time so that we have an idea and we can prepare a little bit.
How many people do you want us to reach out to? Do you want us to get 100 people there? Or do you want us to get 12 people there? Because I'm wondering how the speed dating is set up and how many people are outreaching to, if it's actually more of like a World Cafe where you have questions or issues at a table and people get to move around and be in smaller groups. But I don't know if we're talking about 2 small groups or we're talking about 10 small groups. Because with the 4 topics, we could potentially outreach to a lot of people. We won't get them all, but.
Well, the first meeting will only be the first topic.
Right.
Correct.
First
right?
meeting
How many
will-
people do you want at the first meeting?
The first meeting will just be, I would think ideally some key people involved in PSU planning who could make a difference in terms of integrating it with municipal planning. I think that you'd want the key decision makers, but on a wide range of topics, right? We heard a lot at the visioning session about that people in town don't know when concerts or sporting events or whatnot are going on, and wouldn't there be some way to have a shared events space? But now, you know, tonight we heard good examples in terms of water and sewer and sidewalks, and I was surprised that it didn't sound like those are integrated more. So there's an opportunity to talk about it at a higher level in kind of theoretical terms of, gee, what would be some systems to put in place to make sure that those conversations happen before they're in front of you with a plan next time.
My only question for that was, each of the things you just mentioned is an individual person or department?
I know, that's why I'm
So
saying
Steve didn't even want to talk about the
a
campus and
high-level
community.
person,
And
but
Ellen Shippey, and also I'm thinking like Jim Hunreiser and Steve Temporino. I mean, you know, if you have like 4 or 5
And
people.
then communications and,
True. So yeah, we're looking at like, you know, maybe like 10 to 12 people versus like 100.
I would say if you get more than 15, it gets unwieldy. I
for
think
each
if
of
you-
these?
Yeah, yeah.
No, I thought maybe we
Just
shoot
the
for like
first one.
100 for.
Yeah.
I'm just looking for clarification.
For any of them, I would think.
Really?
So we're just like high level, you know, individual.
in my mind, for these, you're reaching out to the high-level people, but you're
You want
Take anybody.
representation.
But you're welcoming anybody.
Yes.
But you want the key people there who can really follow up on things.
Well, who could say this won't fly or this will fly and I know
Right.
how, or otherwise it's
Exactly.
just a circular conversation. I know I met with Thad Gulbranson yesterday and mentioned this. And he's the, I think you said yes, Thad. He's the VP for Research and Engagement, but that's that whole bigger, broad community thing, literally and figuratively, so perhaps, yeah, a couple folks like that could answer some questions in their own genre, and then, you know, a business person and maybe some of the neighbors in some of the neighborhoods, or, you know, what are,
Well, I wouldn't go there for
No.
this conversation.
no?
Have they presented their master plan to you?
Yeah.
2014.
Maybe if you could get them to start with a quick
An
review of that.
overview,
You
yeah,
know, you have
'cause it
the
was a while
members, the
ago.
VP who there haven't seen it.
Yeah, it was a while ago, so I think
Kinda-
we've got new people here.
Here's that master plan, here's what yours says about the relationship with PSU, here's a starting point for discussion.
That's a very
We
good
can,
idea.
maybe some questions for them to think about ahead of time, so they're not feeling on the
Mhm.
spot, but they'll know what we're really looking for. We need to check on, I was thinking the senior center, but if we could get them to invite us and have this one at PSU somewhere, that would be even better.
Mm.
I guess I just want to revisit the format too. You mentioned World Cafe or some sort of facilitated discussion. I think it really depends on how many people we get too, so.
Right, that's why I was thinking that it might be good to have people RSVP for this one. Then I can kind of, when we sit down on this, let's say that we had a location and it was gonna work April 14th, when we sit down on the 7th, then I can bounce a couple of options off you for how to organize that. Based on who's coming in terms of the key people and what numbers we're looking at.
This is just procedural. We have no applications in the hopper for Thursday, the 18th, believe it or not. But that is a regular planning board date, so I don't know if we can utilize that for anything. This is just a little thing this month. But we wouldn't be ready other than to just continue this discussion.
Right.
I mean, I'm kind of throwing it out to these guys.
Yeah, hopefully,
Yeah, you could be
hopefully
stuffing
you'll be
envelopes.
envelopes.
Yeah, you would be. Yep. Oh, joy.
So,
Can't wait.
my major concern with this whole process is figuring out who's gonna work on which of these subcommittees amongst ourselves, and figuring out how to do the outreach. I mean, it seems to me that probably 2 of us should sit on one or more of these groups, and that those 2 people should be responsible for calling people in the community to make sure they come to that focus group.
That's a great way to organize contacting the stakeholders. You should all be at all of the meetings, though.
Right, but in terms of doing outreach to the people in the community, I think it's easier if one or two people
Personal,
work
yeah.
on one of these topics to call the people in the community. I mean, it's, and not to say that, you know, if Rebecca and I decided to do natural resources, we could put together the list of people we're gonna contact and pass it around by email and say, is there anybody else that we have not thought of that we should call? But I think, you know, I've had comments from people in the community already that, you know, we really need to reach out into the community and make sure these are well attended. That was important to people that are out there, so.
Yeah, and personal knowledge of people that come to mind is the first thing, and right, and then you just build on it.
For the first one, I think if you're gonna make it before finals, you need to have that conversation tonight of who's gonna be that subcommittee for PSU. People's calendars fill out, so
Yeah.
we wanna.
I have a question about why do the PSU one finals if they're all paid staff?
You often go away after finals.
They're often really busy because it's before graduation. Like Ellen, we won't be able to get Ellen.
No, I don't think, you know, and they're just the date that you were talking, I was just thinking about that.
That's
too.
the one concern.
It's a month before graduation,
Doesn't matter.
no?
It's really hard. I mean, they all go into, they're gonna be busy with this building and so it means they're gonna be really hard to get. So either if we're gonna do it then, I think we need to let them know soon.
That's why I was saying, I think we need to make that decision tonight. Here's the date, we're working on a location.
Okay, so who wants to be on that university committee? Let's make it happen here. Can we do that?
Sure.
To be on that committee, or I thought we were gonna all be on the committee, maybe target a couple, we're coming up with names, I guess, tonight though, right?
Well, it's two people to spearhead making the list for each.
Make sure the phone calls get made.
Right.
I'll volunteer.
All right.
For the university ones.
I'll volunteer, so Bill and I'll do that one.
Okay, and you copy me on everything, I keep pushing it through the pipeline.
Do you think it's realistic to try to get a location on campus, or should we contact the senior center?
Depends on how big a group.
It was, be easier if it was like during a winter or something like that, which is no longer the case, so,
Or
I
if
mean,
that dorm was
Prospect.
built already and there'd be that little space there.
What's that?
Actually, there's a really nice room in Langdon Woods. I think there probably are a couple spaces, but they're gonna wanna know approximately how many people in order to book a room.
Well, there's Prospect too, those back rooms. We got a couple that, you can probably like,
That are used during meals though.
well, outside of meals. I mean,
Right.
We can,
What about in the hub upstairs? That room?
Potentially the Hage
Yeah.
room, yeah.
Yeah.
Yep, that's
I mean,
another
that's
good.
not a big room, but it's big enough. for
actually,
small-
there's several up there too.
It's
that you
true.
can-
That's right, you've got that giant room up there.
I think it's appropriate just to get out of our box here
Yeah.
and go to campus if we can, because it just sparks a better conversation.
Yeah.
And I guess one reason I was thinking before graduation was maybe students that have something good to offer. And I think we'd be really, missing out on that
Yeah.
potential.
So that's a good point.
And actually, Steve Taxar was making a reference to, I mean, it was kind of struggling as far as like the community gathering between, community, town, and school. And Jeff Furlong is on that, generally assigned to that, and Jim Hunrise has been showing up. But the head of the Student Senate also shows up.
Oh, good.
So that would be a good target.
So tell me more about that group.
No.
What is, I mean, is that?
So it's CCC, and I don't remember what the acronym means.
Campus and Community Council?
Council,
Yeah.
right.
And it was set up to address, certain, town issues and/or PSU issues for the town.
Conflicts.
And people, the public are invited. When I'm there, it's usually like, property owners that have student housing. The inn on that road behind Boyd.
Pleasant.
Yeah.
She lives in there, yeah.
So, there's like several people that are very interested in at least discussing noise issues, trash. But yeah, it's all vocalized with Dean of Students, Jeff Furlone, and Select Board, Town. Everyone is, put on this agenda to at least come forward with some statement.
See, I'm seeing this session hanging together very differently than the other three. And one thing that might be good, in addition to a little bit of why are we there, what's the town plan, and why are we there, what's the PSU plan, might be 3 minutes from somebody on that council of what have they been doing. So that, we start the discussion with, here are all the pieces. Now, how do we make it all work together? How to brainstorm on that.
Well, actually, that council is a good start, because it does also have the chief of police, our chief of police. It also has Steve Temporino, chief of the University Police, and Dean of Students, the Student Senate. I mean, it's got all the players pretty
So
much.
there's one-stop shopping for a lot of the people that you want there.
But then, yeah, in addition, we'd like to target probably additional people like Jim Hunreiser, who may or may not show up at those meetings, and Ellen Shibby. Okay, there's your names.
Under what category does a hospital come under as far as meetings are concerned?
Community facilities.
Yeah, 4. Thing.
Say 4.
I would say
Sounds
community
good.
facilities.
Yeah.
You don't make, I don't remember any recommendations in your current implementation plan about the hospital. What kind of things about the hospital are you thinking about, John?
Well, as far as capital improvements, as far as, what are their plans for the future as far as advancement is concerned, as far as...
Maybe that's not one of these meetings, but maybe that's an invitation you make to them for one of these meetings.
Because
So
that, I know...
That's a good question, it's a good thought. That,
I know they have a lot of property in Plymouth that
Yeah.
they have, but it's not recognized as a hospital. So, eventually we are going to run out of land, so we only have a hospital and college and no commercial businesses, and I'd like to know what they had in mind.
I think it's good too, because they can also tell us what issues they're having related to
That's right.
traffic and
Right.
infrastructure.
yeah, that's, we should do that at one of these meetings. I think get them on the agenda to come talk to you and be able to have that conversation.
They used to come quite often, but we haven't had that happen for the last 3 or 4 years. We used to invite them, and they'd come and tell us what their plans were.
I mean, I see somebody from the hospital being part of number 4, as Rebecca said, with emergency preparedness, transportation, and community
Yeah.
facilities issues. To have a couple key people from the hospital seems to make sense. One less meeting.
But in terms of their master plan, that's, you can ask them. So who's gonna follow up on a location? I know you guys are gonna work together on the people, but you're gonna work together on a location as well?
If you'd like, maybe we can turn like the CCC into this meeting and actually extend it, because it doesn't usually run 2.5 hours. But and there's Kara Barker, oversees the agenda and getting the the invitation out.
I wouldn't have it be there. I wouldn't do that. I would invite them.
Well, I'm thinking Kara, we're going to take advantage of Kara, but by having her, just invite people that.
Are you shirking your duties already?
I think
And she would also
it's
grab
bigger
her
than
own
that, and I think you don't want the
onus
noisy
to be-
neighbor issues to dominate the conversation.
Well, I wasn't thinking of that, but I was thinking of asking Kara nicely to coordinate the invitations to people that we want in this discussion. She could also get the room too, and we generally have it in the hub. It's not like I'm giving up ownership of it.
Whatever gets them there. I mean, that's kind of how I look at it.
Yeah.
That's
The other alternative would be Steve Taxar, who's going to probably be the one to talk about the master plan. Okay. could help coordinate it too.
Yeah.
So either way, I think you'll get to where you're headed.
You pled somewhat ignorance in like, you know, who actually is at this kind of meeting, I guess, the CCC or whatever, or
But I think we, through you guys, should offer the initial contact and invitation. I think that's very important.
Yep.
Somebody else can, delegate the administrative part, but.
Give me a few days to get something in your hand that you can show them.
Okay.
I think that will help you explain what it's about and help you make the ask.
All right, I won't jump ahead.
Just so you don't go home and call people tonight.
She knows you so well.
Yeah. Okay.
So are we still floating around a date, or are we gonna wait till we can see availability of space?
Might want to target an approximate date, just to. So
Because otherwise it'll
let it
slip
float.
away.
Right, I'd thrown out April 14th.
Okay.
That's not school
Thursday,
vacation.
it's a Thursday in April, I know.
I think so, no.
And is that too
Last
close?
week in
is that
April.
Too close to finals, or is that good enough?
so.
or-
Not that close.
It's a month before graduation.
So what date?
April 14th.
And you are thinking an evening?
What are we so concerned about whether the students are on vacation or whether they're taking finals or not, since they're not part, I know they're part of the voting people, but as far as actual town affairs are concerned, are they, and this is supposed to be a long-range 10-year plan, and most of those students won't even remember what Plymouth looks like by 10 years from now.
Because I think they might have some great ideas based on their observations.
But
Being part of the university.
they're great plans. They come up with these great plans, and then we're left with the bills.
They can give us a lot of insight though, John, and I
Right.
think you're only talking about a couple
Ideas.
people, and some of the students are involved with the campus and community council, or they'd have a reason to maybe give us some insight. That could also be valid for a student that's here 10 years from now. I think that was a rationale for the
But you're
survey.
saying there's only two or three?
Well, it sounds like we're not gonna have a very big group overall.
Well, you're not gonna, you're gonna publicly advertise it, you never know. And you might learn about a crosswalk location that you hadn't thought of as, a simple thing.
I'm just afraid that, and it's happened I've been here long enough so I can remember the hullabaloo that we had as far as the last planning board for the master plan. And it was a fiasco most of the time. But if you have a lot of a certain element of the population come in and take over the meeting, then they are going to get what they want. And I'm just afraid that a lot of your older people won't be coming, and a lot of your students, and they'll come up with a lot of these ideas. I'm not saying to keep them away, but I'm just saying, why are we governed by their vacation or their graduation? And some of these people that are going to be seniors at the time that they do that, so that I know they're the biggest employee of Plymouth, one of them, the hospital, the other one, but they don't contribute to the payment, and I always seem to go back to that, the payment of the bills on some of their ideas, and I just think that the permanent quote-unquote residents of Plymouth should be maybe the main thrust instead of the students.
And that's why we're gonna wait and have all the other meetings after we have the survey results.
Rebecca?
That's also our job, I think, is to populate these meetings with as diverse a group as we possibly can.
Yeah.
And I will point out that I am also a full-time student, so there are a lot of full-time people, year-round people here too that are students as well. So, and I couldn't handle a meeting during finals week, so. So that would be, cross me right off the list.
Well,
Not with that
and I might
attitude.
also add, if there's any faculty, they're not gonna be available either. Because as hard as the students work, the faculty are pretty straight out at that time too, and I would think you'd want that voice in there as well. Because they live here.
I
For the most
think
part.
2 months is a reasonable lead time for this kind
Yeah.
of thing.
And what I see missing in a lot of things like this are actually people my age. I think that's a demographic that's often not involved in these type of things, and I think that's something we need to work towards as well.
How do we talk to people like you?
It's all on the internet.
Offer childcare.
Yeah, for childcare. And snacks.
Date night.
So
Speaking
we'll,
of taxpayer dollars.
we'll be in touch about the survey so we can figure out.
Christine, you nag
Start
me,
talking
you
about-
nag me,
Yeah,
and I'll
I'll do
nag
that.
everybody else. How's that? That's just the way it works. It's circular. Yeah, no.
So do
makes
people want to think about which of these groups they want to be involved with for making calls? And do we want to address that tonight, or what? Moving beyond the university meeting.
Probably safe doing that at the in March, or even your next. I may not be at your March meeting. I won't know till it's closer. But you mentioned having time at your next meeting.
sense.
this
Right,
month,
it's
too.
open, it's open. so.
We might have a better idea of the timing by then.
Okay, so let's think about that.
I don't want to schedule them until that survey is actually in the mail.
No, but I'm just thinking if we did agree which ones we're willing to be on, we could start between us to start brainstorming a list
Yeah.
of people.
Oh, I don't want to hold you back.
Right.
I'll
So
jump on number 2.
You're on number 2.
And
I would
wherever
join
else.
her for that, unless somebody else really wants it.
What'd you say, Steve?
I would join Rebecca for number 2.
You don't think we're loading the dice there?
I think we want to get a range of people out.
Brian, I'll be number 4.
I'll be on 3.
You guys?
4.
You want to, I'm sorry, Eugene,
covered the
you and John want to be on economic development and business growth? You two?
We're good.
Okay, guys. Now, who's on first? You two?
We'll be number 4.
Four. Okay.
So we got number 3. All right.
There. Is anyone underutilized? No. Excellent.
Do we have any volunteers for number 3?
Oh, we got, yeah.
For number 3, we got both of these guys, Gene and John.
Yeah.
All right.
So just
Yay.
real briefly on those, the sections in your existing plan that I think that you'd be focusing on in number 2, they're all called sense of place, and it's historic, natural heritage, and arts and recreation. Those are how the implementation section is organized right now. So we would send out those so they have kind of a handout ahead of time to see what we're updating. In the business growth and economic development, obviously it's the economic development section. It's also some of the land use recommendations. I think real key there is going to be business owners. That's really who we want to see at number 3. They need to tell you what they need to expand their business, to expand the number of livable wage jobs they provide. 4 obviously is going to be town department heads and others involved in the hazard mitigation plan,
Yeah, and
transportation.
if you need contacts to query anyone or anything.
Well, number 3, it seems like the Enterprise Center, that some of the folks involved with more regional economic
That's a good
development.
idea.
Yeah.
A couple
There's
key
probably a
people.
lot of information there already.
There was
They're-
also the
they're
Chamber of
kind of
Commerce
the
used to be there
low-hanging
too, but
fruit.
that's kind of full of
I
that.
mean, that's, we all, I could call them, but
The road agent.
the business owners, I think, are gonna be where you have to really put some work in to get them.
I mean, I've had a few business
Road
owners
agent for the town.
talk in my ear,
I
so
have a cheat
sending
sheet.
them specifically, especially the ones like in town here that are affected. I had a good hour and a half conversation with one about parking, for example, you know.
So we'll add you to that list.
Yeah, I don't know, yeah, it could be.
Question on number 4. Every community deals with this differently. Education, your education section mostly talks about the relationship with PSU, so that's really kind of topic number 1. You need to kind of make the call of to what degree you want to get involved in a conversation about elementary and high school education in it when you talk about the community facilities, because that could be a whole series of meetings
Well,
in
you have
itself.
two middle school, elementary school teachers?
Middle school.
Middle school teachers.
And the
here.
school, I mean, if you want to talk about that, then you've got to get,
I can get in touch
school
with Mr. Halloran.
administrators, school board, people from the district.
Yeah, I can get in touch with Mr. Halloran
That'd be great.
about that. See if that's.
He lives right in town, so he'd be.
Yep.
Yeah.
Now, how many speakers would you like to have as far as each one of these meetings, as far as business owners and so forth?
Not really speakers, they're gonna be people that sit down with you and brainstorm on some questions.
Let me rephrase that. How many businessmen would you like to have at the particular meeting?
I
that
can't-
you're involved with?
I can't offhand think of a reason we'd want to limit the number of people at any of these.
You know, you're gonna have to call them, you're gonna have to get in touch with them, so
Yeah.
if there's, I don't know how many, 35 or 40 businesses in Plymouth and Tenny Mountain Highway, which is our red-headed stepson, we do remember those now and then, but there's a ton of business out there, so you could have a potential 40 or 50 people at the meeting on
Yeah,
for
but they
business
won't all
people.
come.
If they did, that's what I'm trying to say. How many do you think we should call? And
Well, large businesses, small businesses, and maybe types of businesses, retail versus whatever, service versus, just different types, and then of the different types, maybe the larger ones or the smaller ones.
And it may also be that you know some of the owners
Yeah.
to know whether they're going to be comfortable participating in this kind of venue. Are they going to be?
And I think also you just ask them if they can make it or not, and if they can't, then you move on to the next person on your list. So you've got a list of 40,
We don't
and
have
maybe you only
dates
get
yet, so
halfway through, so.
And I think we have a lot more, I think John's point, we have a lot more businesses than we realize. I mean, 3 of us have businesses right here that don't have storefronts. And so there's the range of businesses, like you're saying, geographically.
Yeah.
I think if we just do the best we can, if we're so lucky to get a good cross-section, we'll have a big group.
Yeah. And that's going to be a hard thing to do, too. He brings up a good point. There's a lot of people that have homegrown businesses that don't have storefronts, so it'd be pretty hard to even get in touch with them.
I think we know between all of us and maybe the people you'll identify, we'll know who some of those folks are. We can try to get that good cross-section.
And that's where our business growth in the region is.
Right.
So that's really important.
So what's our advertising plan for outreach on these groups? We're going to public notice?
Public notice, I'm hoping to get a feature article and then our website, and then remember we're going to utilize PBCAM's Facebook page and, just
Any other Facebook pages?
any
That one
other
didn't have anything that recent on it.
dissemination, yeah.
Okay.
I mean, word of mouth you folks are some of the best links, just by word of mouth or your own Facebook pages or whatever.
Is there any possible way of maybe having it come over TV or anything like that? Is there any news type of thing that says there'll be a master plan meeting?
Oh, yeah, no, Jules does that all the time. She runs advertisements, so to speak, public notices
Where?
on channel, whatever it
3 and
is, 20 and 3.
Yeah, it's like
Channel what?
3 and 20, which
Yeah,
is
I-
not 3 and 20 on my TV, but that's
I put
okay.
everything through
Public
her.
access channel.
So that's text on the screen?
Well, it's like a PowerPoint, just scroll through
Right,
PowerPoint
right.
slides.
Were you thinking to have somebody like talking
Yeah.
on the television?
Well, that's what I'm thinking, actually, just they have a studio, just go in and
We
Yeah,
should
you
do
can
that,
do a
'cause that
little-
would be
Make a
more
production.
dynamic.
Yeah,
Public
that's what
service
I was
thing,
thinking.
right.
A couple of us volunteered and just created a little script together.
Yeah.
A short
Yeah.
commercial.
Yeah.
Yep.
But,
Great idea.
I haven't watched 3 or 20 for so long, I forgot they were even there.
But you're on TV, John.
Huh?
You're on TV.
I know, but I probably won't be watching it.
No, but you
So-
could certainly do that. I could help set that up with Jules. That's a great idea.
So what I would suggest is that people start making their target lists, and that maybe at our next meeting, we can just have a draft of those and pass them
You
around.
can talk while you're
Have to have
stuffing
your number and
envelopes
your
and just
name.
Talk
give
more
it a
stuff
little
in
bit.
envelopes.
I think it would also be helpful
Okay.
if you have ideas in other areas.
I'm going with you. I can stuff yours.
I'll send out an
Oh,
email.
I've done that.
Take care of one.
Finding people and calling.
If we create a list, if Rebecca and I
We
create
can
an
take it on the
Excel
plane.
sheet, and we send it to you to,
Hey, kids,
we're
I
stuffing
love
envelopes
Excel
on the 3-hour
sheets.
plane.
you love Excel sheets?
Bill does too.
I know Bill does.
No, like I said
With access
before in the
databases.
email.
Oh, even better.
Now you're talking language.
So that we can look at it between meetings and
Yeah.
add.
Whatever.
Okay.
I mean, I think we've.
So in March, you want to be finalizing the outreach plan, I'd
Yep.
say.
Let's do that part.
If these other 3 meetings are gonna be in May and June.
I think that sounds
I think
doable.
I think you're
Okay, good.
That's good.
have a good start.
We're getting some momentum. We've got kind of, inertia ennui from the systems failures of late. We overcame that.
Okay, anything else?
Can I just bring something up about the Survey Monkey survey?
Quickie survey?
Yeah, it's done. I think it would be nice if a few people would actually take the survey to just make sure.
Can you send us all?
You sent it out?
I can send you all a link, yeah. There's a few things that didn't quite line up, but they're fine. But I'm sure I screwed something up.
Yeah, I would send it out to me and.
Do it
and
to
the board, and we
beta
can be
test
the-
it.
Yeah, we'll be the beta testers.
We'll tell you if it's no good.
What do you mean they didn't line up just they didn't give you the format question you wanted?
It actually worked out. I mean, it took me about an hour. It's just where there was an other line, and I think if we had done this before we had printed the survey, we could have just switched the survey. But the other line is like G, and then there's another option H. But the way SurveyMonkey is, the other has to be the last one. So I think it's when it comes time to data entry, we're just gonna have to flip flop some columns. So, no, it was actually pretty easy. So,
Yes.
Thank you.
not much time. Yeah.
You get an extra land use book.
Oh,
Yay.
darn.
You get an old land use book. I have a million of them.
Just really hoping
Thank
to win
you,
that one.
Tara.
You.
Thanks.
All right, last
Barbara,
but not
thanks.
least,
It's nice to see you.
we have minutes to approve. We're going to start with December 17th. Does anyone have comments on these minutes? Read very quickly.
Go for it.
I moved to, unless you had a comment, Bill.
No.
I moved to accept these minutes.
If there are no, I second it, and if there are no objections, we will accept those minutes. Moving on to December 3rd. This was a lot of, we must have talked all night.
Motion to adopt the minutes as written.
I'll second. Oh,
No, it's okay.
jeez.
All right, if there are no objections, we will adopt these minutes as written. November 19th. Railroad Square.
Yeah, I think we talked a lot at that meeting too.
We did. Anyone comments on these minutes? Do I have a motion to accept them?
So moved.
Have a second. All right, if there are no objections, they are accepted. Public comments before we adjourn?
No.
Oh, other new business?
No, just stuff. Planning and zoning conference is coming up. There will be a spring. It will be April before you know it. This is your first save the date thing, and as you know, the town will pay for your registration and carpooling mileage reimbursement out of my budget. So, and just one more item, that sewer project letter.
Yeah.
That just arrived. Once again, this is a non-governmental use, village precinct, village district, in terms of zoning and stuff. I've asked, this letter was to me, it's part of the environmental review, NEPA. So I asked them for a couple of things, but it's very interesting reading to see, this is for the upgrade of the wastewater treatment facilities plant. I had no idea we were receiving this much septage from other towns. And to the level and stuff, so it's interesting. I mean, it's great. This is it's a USDA grant, and it's only going to make things better down there. But it's very interesting. So if you have any comments or questions, I don't. Who's the rep? Bill, are you the rep to water and sewer? No.
Yeah.
Neil was.
Yep. Still is, I think.
Neil, when he was on this, I don't know, I forget, but have they done a public, did you know, anyone know if they've already done a public presentation on this? I know when Jason Randall, the superintendent, came to speak to us, he did mention it, and that was a very good presentation, but I just wondered if anyone knew if this had already essentially been disseminated to the public. Okay, so I just give it a once-over, it's interesting. And that's all I have, thank you.
Any other new business? Comments from the public? Mike is not here tonight, so do I have a move to adjourn? Movement.
Second.
We're adjourned.